Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, it's been a record week. We finally got there after 3 long years. I'm really appreciative of all of you that stuck with us during that time. Not once have I given up. It was always a certainty in my mind that we were going to get to this point. And not only has Bitcoin passed 20,000, but we've already hit 24,000. And there's a long way to go for a lot of these other quality projects that I also think are going to reach their all-time highs as well. So Bitcoin is still really leading the charge. There's a lot of energy and attention on that. We'll talk about how that rotation of money is going to shift. We've got a lot of macro headlines to get through as well. The world is a crazy place at the moment, and hopefully I can do my best to keep you up to date with it all. Now, it was my birthday over the weekend. Sunday, had a great day with friends and family yesterday. So guys, when that does happen, I'll try and do it on the Monday. And we will be trying to take a little bit of time off over Christmas and New Year's. Still got some videos and stuff to get out this week. For our members, we'll still have content coming out. And if there's anything big that's important that's happening, obviously we'll still post updates. But on other socials and YouTube, we might try and wind things down a little bit over the next week or two. Have a bit of a break. I know you guys are hopefully having a break as well. It's been a rocky, crazy year. We will do our year in review and the summary and our look forward ahead, because one of the things that one of the best episodes, favorite episodes of mine, and something we got a lot of predictions right from, was that look ahead video. We'll do some gold and silver, looking ahead, some thoughts. So yeah, plenty of content to come out. What a great way to wrap up the year. 104,000 subscribers. Welcome to another couple of thousand subscribers this week. I'm not sure where you're all coming from, but I'm glad that you are here and joining us. I also want to give a special shout out to our legacy members. So our legacy members are those that we gave, they've been with us for a long time, and when we launched this new platform, we gave them special privileges, and they've been very grateful for it. Albeit, apart from the typo there, I'm not sure about the Collective Shitbay group, but Collective Shift is the name of our new platform there. You are going to notice a few of our junior researchers posting more as well. I'm really happy with how they're all coming along. You will see things like professional resources. So one of our new staff members is from San Francisco, who specializes in valuations. So this week he did a crypto portfolio design piece and presented a couple of dozen alternate portfolio models that you can use. And that's sort of stuff that even I love reading and learning from as well. Obviously, Maddie, with his NFT knowledge, he's going to be doing some research and reports for members as well. So that's all in the platform. If you haven't checked it out yet, head over there. Take advantage of the free knowledge center, particularly with your friends and family. Now, there's so many scams going around at the moment. I can't stress it enough how important it is to get them to read that pieces about scams. I'll probably, in particular, just mention something that's happened today as well. This ledger data hack and breach has now been made public. And if you've ever purchased a ledger or ordered from them, all that information has been dumped online, and it is your physical address where you live, phone number. This is all personal information. So if it was in the ledger database, it's now public. So guys, please head over. You can follow this link from my Twitter that I retweeted this today and see if you're on there. But unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do. And this is the real danger of some of these centralized companies having all our data. But we'll talk about that more in the crypto news section. All right, let's get into the local news. So, unfortunately, Australia, like a lot of places, is going into forms of lockdown as we get these scares about further waves coming. Now, you guys know that I've changed my stance. I'm of the belief that we should, by now, know enough to not have to go into complete lockdown when we get these scares. So very frustrating to see the borders being shut again at this time of year when people want to visit friends and family after a hard year. But unfortunately, governments seem to be stuck in their ways at the moment, and there's not enough health professionals saying, let's push forward, because there's bigger things at play now. Unemployment dropped to 6.8, but 90,000 people starting work in November. That's great with the reopening. If we dig into those statistics a little bit deeper, it's not as it seems, and Martin and I will do our deep dive this week. But JobKeeper demand and booming iron ore did help this the budget as well after a massive deficit there. It is the story, like all countries, though, of the rich, comfortable middle class, and then the rest. So the income divide, it continues to grow. We're hearing these things about what percentage certain brackets spend on their mortgage, all these things that Martin and I have been talking about for a long time. But air travel has seen record demand in that bounce back. So I think domestically, Australians do want to get out there and help the local economy and whatnot. New Zealand have offered us this travel bubble. This was a few days ago, and I don't think it's going to be back on the cards when we're studying our state borders, but we do want to get that going. You guys know that I am a big believer now that if you're a healthy person, vitamin D, zinc, get out there, exercise, look after yourself, give yourself that best chance of defending off like any infection, and that's where we really need to be, as well as all the other safety measures. But it really is doing my head in that we're putting these entire, even countries, back into lockdown because of these scares. The big banks. Now, they're being targeted by ASIC. Plenty of you will remember this Dolomite scheme from when we were kids. But look, is this just a way for them to start manipulating these kids? And we've seen all sorts of things over the years about how they're doing these different programs, and then it ends up with them opening bank accounts and then charging fees, this, that, and the other. So, hey, the banks are always got a little agenda, don't they? The Aussie dollar is surging. Now, I just mentioned iron ore prices. Tensions with China, I think that's going to come into the file more going forward. But one thing I mentioned a long time ago when we spoke about this all playing out and the problem that Philip Lowe would have would be this rising Aussie dollar. So even though he's come to the party in terms of 0% interest rates, printing $100 billion of QE, it's just not enough. It's still not as crazy, believe it or not, as the rest of the world. And so as long as we're not doing completely ridiculous things with our money printing, the Aussie dollar is going to get stronger, and that is going to really hurt our economy when we're so reliant on these exports. Now, the thing that it's good for is going on overseas holidays, but that's something that we're probably not going to be doing. So whether or not that means we're going to go negative interest rates or printing more money, that is the things that they're going to have to do to get the Aussie dollar down. All right, so Australian coal's been blocked indefinitely by Beijing. They're now planning to build a fish processing facility in Torres Strait. So there's all this back and forward going on still. And Australia has officially referred China to the World Trade Organization. I'm not really sure what you're doing. It almost feels like the dobbing on the bully in the schoolyard is just not going to change anything. If anything, it might make it worse. What I do want to see, though, is more innovation, and let's just get things going here, okay? Let everything else take care of itself. We can find new neighbours to do trade with. Let's just really focus in on us. And I hadn't even read too much about this, Tasmania being the nation's battery. We already are to some degree. I spoke last week about how Tasmania has basically become almost self-sustainable in terms of its energy now as well. So if we can be the ones that are leading the way, maybe a bit more of a Tesla station here, let's get all that sort of stuff going. South Australia have done that with Elon Musk as well. But the more tech we have and more jobs in Tassie, the better. All right, so over to China there, mainland China, where they've been injecting nearly $1 trillion worth of yuan in the medium-term liquidity after these bond defaults. So this is where the government just step in. They don't want to let another one of those banks go down. We spoke last week, I think, about that huge credit impulse, and it's the rate of change of that credit and the lending facilities here that do boost things. But at the end of the day, you still need to do something productive and tangible. It's not just that money printing that gets things going, as we know. So with China bouncing back strongly, they are consuming a lot of energy, and it's funny to read these sort of stories, and I don't know if this is entirely true, but they've got these electricity shortages even though they're still punishing Australia. So they could be taking that coal and using it, but they'd rather put the ban hammer down at the moment. Australia also came out this week and said that they've got this big leak themselves of these CCP members, and it lifts the lid on all these global surveillance. But let's be honest, Australia are part of the Five Eyes Alliance. Everyone's spying on everybody these days, so it just shouldn't surprise you at all. Foreign investment is continuing to pour into China. So remember, people at the end of the day are focused on getting those returns. So you can say all you want about these certain countries, but when you see these big hedge funds and, money talks and money's going to go where it can get a return. They don't really care about the politics between different countries for the most part. The US is continuing to blacklist a lot of Chinese companies, the largest chip maker, 60 other companies. Now that has actually had follow-on effects, so there's looking like we could have a semiconductor shortage. That's going to cause all sorts of delays for all our favorite devices. Look, whether or not that plays out, whether or not the US can bring that sort of thing back onto home soil, again, is Australia going to look to do that? They're the sort of conversations and supply chains that are really changing now. I want to throw this one in here as well. So this is a new bit of technology, a new type of satellite that can peer inside some buildings. And put on top of that with all the Alexa devices, all your mobiles, the cameras, the mics, everything's been recorded, everything online, and now we've got the buildings as well. So there's really nowhere to hide these days, and it's definitely becoming clear that it's all part of this fresh start, reset, global agenda, whatever you want to call it. But this is now being used as the excuse to just take away all those freedoms. And I think it stands out a little bit more now when we're going back into it, when things aren't that bad. So where does the conversation go in the new year? That is the absolute fascinating thing for me, when we now get people getting up to date on this and asking some really tough questions of their leaders. So look, a new UK lockdown is signalling worsening economic outlook. They're talking about being in lockdown until Easter over there, and it's not even Christmas. I mean, I've got friends in the UK from when I lived over there, and I feel so sorry for them. And it's not like in Australia where you at least have, big wide open spaces. They're going to their winter. It really just does suck. Jakarta setting this curfew as well. It's the developing nations, it's the big cities, and there's these vaccines that are being rolled out. That is the next chapter of the conversation. What percentage of people are going to willingly take this? And Pfizer and Moderna have kind of got these clauses out now because they've had to rush these through. And yes, they've done the studies, but they want to make sure that you can't, sue them if you have a severe reaction. So during the week, we have seen a few of these videos come out. There was one in particular of a nurse that was trying to prove that it was safe, and she was happy to take it. And then she, collapses a couple of minutes later. So that's obviously only a case study of one, and it might be safe for 99.9% of people, but it's just that little bit unknown. And what if it does actually have these side effects for 1% of people? That something pops up 12 months later. We just haven't got that data yet. So I really think when we look at how bad the situation actually is, we should be just redirecting that conversation to the other trade-offs we can make. How can we do this without forcing everyone to have this vaccine and telling people, you're going to need that to travel, you're going to need that to go into the city. This is where it's all going, and it is not going to be pretty, I'll tell you that right now. Dr. Fauci saying the US could return to normal by mid-fall. Again, this is the message. If most people get the vaccine, you're going to be told that time and time again. Sweden is seeing unprecedented resignations in healthcare among the second wave surge. So I think I touched on this a few times. The exception to the rule, from what I can gather reading all the data here in my pharmacist background, is that the healthcare workers that are young and fit, okay, they don't have the diabetes, they're not on the ACE inhibitors, those other things that we believe can make you more susceptible to COVID. The reason that a lot of healthcare workers are getting sick is purely viral load, so that they're getting a lot of exposure throughout the day. Even with the protective equipment, getting more and more of that is more likely for it to overrun you and make you ill. So look, when they're getting paid a pittance from what we hear, then getting sick and being treated poorly, long hours, it's stressful. These are all the things that unfortunately as part of the real world when we just see those numbers on the screen. Brazil's Supreme Court is ruling that it can be mandatory, and this is all going to cause a huge stir on social media. And we've already seen plenty of instances on Twitter or YouTube, whatever it is. These social media giants are already under fire, big fines and blocked sites under new UK rules. What is harmful content? That is going to be a massive, massive discussion. And yes, we see it, these articles saying that there's all this division in the world and polarization because of social media, but I think it's also some of the fault of government and our leaders that have lied to us and misled us, just kept those truths and just treated people so poorly in a lot of ways, as well as the big corporates. Absolutely. This was the worry, okay? If you don't do a hard, fast lockdown, Americans' mental health hits 20-year low. And this is as we're going into these renewed lockdowns. So this is going to be far worse, okay, than the actual numbers themselves. That's what I really fear here. These charts showing that where Americans splurge and what they cut off, just as things were starting to normalize, and the retail sales or the bar and the restaurant down the street, just as that was starting to get back to normal, that are the sort of things that are going to suffer, unfortunately. A lot of people will give up. If you've fought and scrapped for 6 months and you just get there, mentally you probably don't want to do that. When the UK tells you it's going to be 4 or 5 months, you will probably give up and shut down the business. What's the incentive to keep it going as a small business? Now, thankfully in the US, they have passed this deal. So there's talk now of $600 checks going to everyone. We'll get more details tonight. I'm recording this on Monday in Australia. So when the US wakes up, I'm sure all the headlines are going to have the details about this. But the Fed have had an absolute nightmare year, and it's not over yet because the jobs have just rolled over. We're starting to get the worst jobs numbers in months again now. Well, we've got all these central bankers that are getting together, and they've all gone down this similar path. So yes, Powell is talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, but he's promised that policy is going to stay very, very easy. And I think I tweeted cheekily during the week that he specifically said that they would ease up or only keep the easy money flowing until the economy reopened and they had the vaccine. And now we've got the economy reopening and 3 vaccines. And someone asked him about that statement. He said, no end in sight. We're just going to keep printing money and be as accommodative as we can for the foreseeable future. And rates are going to stay at zero for years. So you start to see what I'm saying here about the Australian central bank attitude and how our Aussie dollar is going higher versus the US dollar this week got crushed because they're basically saying we're going to print infinite money, rates are going to be zero, even though things are going okay. So that is really, really crazy. And I think they do want to get the dollar down. 8 million have slipped into poverty. Thankfully, these are the people that are going to be rescued if we can get this passed ASAP. Now, how quickly do the checks get to those people? Do we, for the first time ever, see the dispersion of cryptocurrency, some stable coins through apps to get people this money faster? Very interested to see if that happens. Americans have been running down their checking accounts. Another example here of why you just can't go back into this lockdown because people have kind of organized everything around this date in terms of their finances as well as mentally again. But hopefully it is enough to help everyone. And the other end of the spectrum here is just the wealthy who they might just say, you know what, I'm out of here while flights are open again. The 1% go to their remote island out in the open. And I think they're the sort of things that are really going to frustrate the government policymakers when the wealthy have had it so good, and when there's a tough time like this, there's going to be revisions and studies, and they're going to go back over everything that happened and say, look what happened to these people, look what happened to these people. Then you are going to pay more tax. You are going to pay for everything that you did. All right, so the US has tagged Switzerland as a currency manipulator. It's always funny, isn't it, when the US have been absolutely printing into oblivion and getting the US dollar down, but everyone else apparently is a manipulator. They all do it. I'm not sure why we're even having this conversation, but one other industry that I did want to mention here was this whole fake wealth. So whether it's the Fed printing money, you might have heard the saying fiat money, fake money, and we're living these fake lives. There's fiat food and fiat lifestyles, and I really think that these kind of influencers definitely fall into that category. So people that want you to think that they're rich or want you to think that they've got all these Gucci bags, whatever it is. We see some influencers going to places or test driving cars and taking the photos to make it seem like they've got all these riches. So if we actually have another downturn, another recession or a depression, so many people are going to really have to reassess what's important in life. And that gets right back to that theme that I've been talking about tangible versus intangible value, and what you place value on, not just as a business and an economy, but as an individual. That they're the really tough questions, and some people never go internally and ask those sort of things. So this is the year where it really has changed everything. One thing I did want to mention here as well, London, Italy going to lockdown. I've mentioned that. Okay, sorry, this one's just out of order. Let's put that back down there. All right. So the Fed came out with that commitment to keep buying bonds until the economy gets back to full employment. And they weren't even specific about what the definition of full employment is, because they just keep changing the goalpost. So that actual pace of purchases is $120 billion a month, with no end in sight. That is all that the market needed to absolutely go gangbusters and the dollar to plunge. So, we don't need profits. Just look through some of these statistics, and we've got a wide range of companies that are zombies that are all absolutely rocketing now. As stocks just said, the party is on. The party is going to continue. So I think you've heard me say over the years, nothing else matters. Stop trying to work out why stocks are going up and this, that, and the other. Nothing else matters when the Fed is printing money. It is so directly correlated to this balance sheet, or the balance sheet of all central banks. But this period here where the stock market was just kind of going sideways, and you have a look at these projections now. So if the Fed is saying we're going to 120 billion a month for the next 2-3 years, we can start to project the balance sheet is going to be up here. So another 20%, 30% growth. I think it's going to be bigger than that. I think we're well over 10 trillion within 12 to 24 months. And you look at these stats from investors. So this is the net percentage of investors underweight cash. So lowest here since 2013. We've got the US weekly equity funds, all this money here flowing back into equities. Investors and their profit expectations, again, another record high for for the past 20 years. This is just the sentiment and the attitude. We can see the net futures contracts, they've risen sharply since July when they bottomed out. So even though stocks are at record highs, we've got people that are levered up. These hedge funds that have to get the high returns, they're now record levered up, 85%. Front month futures contracts, this is the time of day that they actually make money. So in the dark blue here is US trading hours, and you can see since January 2016, the market hasn't really gone anywhere. It's 10%. But if you look at this light blue line, this is the overnight returns. So the vast majority of these returns are happening after hours. And whether or not that's the bots or the algos or a little bit of after hours trading just as markets shut sometimes. But these are very, very interesting statistics that I would not have thought that would have been the case. I actually would have thought that a lot of the manipulation happens at the very start and the very end of the day in the US during actual trading hours. Market depth and liquidity has remained very, very low. So despite the stock market going up, there's not a lot of liquidity there. And we can see the record flow here into different assets. Gold had a great year, but look how tiny this is, $54 billion compared to all these other asset classes. Now, yes, people have drawn down on their cash, but because there's been so much money printed, a lot has flowed in there and it is still there. So see this absolutely spike. So very little had gone into cash when COVID hit. But since then, what's happened? US money supply up 25%, M1 and M2 up 30% this year. So these are those trillions of dollars that we speak about saying they want to find a home. Money wants to go somewhere. And I think the Fed just wanted to go anywhere. And this is why we've got this IPO frenzy once again. So we're back to 1999 levels. We've got these SPAC companies. So these are just the blank checks that investors write out to. That market has gone absolutely nuts. We've got StockX. So this is a sneaker company, $3 billion valuation. So you kind of, sometimes people laugh at the cryptos or their valuations, but I think it's far more insane in the IPO and the SPAC market at the moment in the US. Now, the Fed see strong capital levels for the banks. They've passed their stress tests, so you're right to start doing your share buybacks again. I just, until they get small business looked after, I'm not sure why we're encouraging all this sort of thing again. But anyway, probably another reason why the stock market bubble will continue higher. This is the earnings growth. You can have a look through the projections versus the reality. Cape Shiller indexes. This is in the 100th percentile, a lot of these metrics. So this is how different models you can use to value companies. Just about all of them and the highest they have ever been, or in the top 2-3%. Now, the other piece of the puzzle, as well as the Fed and Jerome Powell doubling down on the money printer, we've now got the chess piece, Janet Yellen, the former Fed head. She's in there. She's with the politicians. This is an arranged marriage. Treasury Secretary, she gets to spend, and she's going to be good at it, I promise you now. So why have a lot of these commodities started going up? It's because of that race for real things, okay? Everyone wants the tangible now that the intangible is just ridiculously overvalued. So lumber prices have been going up. We see everything from rare earths to all other commodities, which we'll get to in just a second. But if you have a look at where that money is going to that they're printing, a lot of it is still just going to these valueless propositions. So these companies are not the ones that are involved with the commodities per se. So we've got Congress passing $17 billion bailout for the airline shareholders and bondholders. You think about the top 4 airlines there, that they did $45 billion in share buybacks since 2012, but now they get that bailout. So this is the whole argument that I've been talking about. Who holds the 1.6 trillion of apartment building debt? We've got all these eviction bans and high occupancy rates. So all these residential or commercial mortgage-backed securities and the CLOs that are built off them, they're all going to start to default. And instead of money being filtered into real jobs, real things, create a business, use commodities, that's the sort of stuff we want to see, infrastructure and whatnot. But instead, where is the money going at the moment? Those bailouts, or it's going into retail investors that are pumping money into Robinhood to buy more Tesla shares. And Robinhood have paid a $65 million fine, but I don't think anything's going to change. And look, I think now that we're in crypto season, and we'll get to the cycles in the crypto part of the video, but I really do think a lot of those Robinhood type crowd are about to come over to the crypto market and play in the altcoins. JP Morgan are playing around a YOLO ETF. So this tracks ARK investments that are really active in tech, but this is also leveraged. So this is, I think we'll look back on things like this and just say, this is insanity. We're making tech ETFs that are leveraged. There's an ETF for everything. I actually am in favor of people that are trying to race for real things. Uranium. We've covered that a year or two ago, saying that this looks like a long time frame bottoming period that uranium's been going through. And the world's highest grade uranium mine has just had to suspend operations. So the uranium price actually had a fantastic run, and the stocks were on fire as well. Copper and silver prices are spiking, whether it's governments carbonizing, renewables, this green theme, whatever it is, the commodities are red hot at the moment. Goldman Sachs have actually purchased the gold ETF from Perth Mint. So this is the AAAU physical gold. So I don't mind the physical gold ETFs. Obviously, we trust Perth Mint here in Australia. So the huge demand for gold from the ETF sector has seen Goldman purchase another ETF that is now going to be listed on New York Stock Exchange. That is more good news. With all this money printing going on in all the different countries, we've seen how the US can still benefit despite what they're doing. But one by one, this time it's Iraq, drastically devaluing the dinar. Fears of nationwide unrest grow. This was exactly what I mentioned halfway through the video. These people are taking to the streets, the yellow vests in France, whatever it is. It all comes back to money, inequality, the system. Even within, we've spoken about the fracturing that's going to happen in Europe because they can't do it on an individual country level. So the Austrian central bank unleashing a pro-cash attack on the ECB's digital euro. I know, hey, how great is this to actually see a central bank going into bat for cash and saying, we want that. We don't agree with the war on cash, and we don't agree with everyone having to use a digital euro where you guys can track absolutely everything. And the conversation has really involved Bitcoin now. So everyone loves their gold, and that's been the traditional way to protect yourself from all this money printing and inflation. But wait till you get to this long list of stories we've got about who's investing in Bitcoin these days. And the two can definitely get along. But I want to throw this one in the macro section for those of you that only watch the macro, because I think it's undeniable now that Bitcoin has become an official asset class that needs to be recognized up there with others. All right, so guys, into the crypto news. And if you are busy these days, like I know so many of us are, don't forget we do offer these sort of products in our new platform. So daily snapshots, headline analysis, all the other reports and research. But the idea is to save you time and let you know what the most important things are without having to search through all the news. And that's all emailed to you. That's all in the app. Nice and easy to use. Join 5,000 others that are there getting all our content. And don't forget, all the Knowledge Center is always free. Okay, so Australia, we are batting above our average here. And I had a number of quotes when Cointelegraph reached out to me for this one. So yeah, super proud to see Australia doing so well. Some of the best DeFi projects are from our own backyard, which you guys are probably familiar. If you're not, check out that article. The big news that was hanging over our heads, and I did mention it this week that I heard the rumors that it was coming, and it was right to the last minute on Friday that we got the news around these dreaded plans to make crypto exchanges identify personal wallets. Look, at the end of the day, it's not a huge change. It's maybe one or two more bits of KYC. I think it's making crypto more legitimate. And where's all the big money been coming from? It's the high net worth investors that they're already fully KYC'd and they've got a broker or a dealer doing this for them. So that changes nothing for the big money there, guys. So it's not panic stations at all. We could see some more fart or fear in the short term. I have heard rumors there might even be another announcement on Tuesday this week, but look, one step at a time. The Stablecoin Act as well is one that I just think it's such a huge step backwards, because these headlines, crypto is just booming in places like Argentina. Maybe it's going to be in Iraq and Iran and Venezuela next, because everyone needs some stable money. And in the short term, stablecoins are helping. Long term, it's going to be the Bitcoin, Ethereum, the decentralized ones that actually are scarce, that aren't being printed 30% more, trillions more every day at the moment. American Express have invested in institutional trading platform Falcon X. So, crypto industry just white hot at the moment, and it's the merger of the two worlds. So whether it's, last week Visa using Ethereum, now I've got American Express getting into Falcon X. The officer controller of the currency in the US this week came out and he said very clearly that I don't mind the idea of issuing these bank charters to stablecoin providers. He is on board with it. Crypto is so ingrained that I think you just cannot take that step backwards now. Square's Cash App, how many millions of users do all these apps have? They're actually adding the ability to get Bitcoin back on purchases. So many more people are going to be spending now through these apps as well as investing. Paxos Firm, they're powering PayPal's service, and I show you these statistics regularly about the demand from retail through Itbit. So they are going for it. They're trying to get these, these licenses, and I hope it is easy for them. Another thing I wanted to just throw in here was the idea that once Bitcoin hits $1 million, then one Satoshi will finally issue 1 cent. Because what we continue to see is newbie investors coming in and saying Bitcoin's too expensive, and they don't understand you can buy a fraction of it, and they look for coins that are cheap. They think they're cheap because they're under $1. So maybe changing the nomenclature of Bitcoin a little bit might help that, because we are getting into alt season. Dogecoin up 20% after an Elon Musk tweet. Now, this also spurred into a conversation between Elon and Michael Saylor all about Bitcoin. And he said, hey, I put $1 billion on our balance sheet. You should do the same. So whether or not that goes anywhere, but that was a fantastic conversation if you haven't seen it already. LG's consulting arm joins Cardania chain, mainnet validators. All these mainstream companies are diving in. They need a crypto plan. They need to stay relevant. Malta was meant to be the leader in the security token space, remember? And that's probably one little section that hasn't taken off. A lot of people predicted it was going to take more time than we first initially thought, but it's those licenses again, and they're now starting to be issued. So I want to throw this one in here because once we have all those licenses, all end of the spectrum, from the money licenses to the securities, custody, storage, insurance, it really is game on for all the different digital assets once we have that. Swiss crypto bank tokenizing themselves and preparing for a public offering. Germany now legalizing digitized security. So it is falling into place, and it's the crypto banks that are game changers. So look, on one end of the spectrum, we've got these old legacy companies that are trying to, partner up and acquire and or add crypto. But I think it's the other end of the spectrum, and like the Coinbase IPO we'll get to in a second, that is where the opportunity lies. So we see these products, Bitwise 10 crypto index, trading at these huge premiums. Remember the Ethereum Grayscale product was trading at 1,000% premium. So these are not the sort of things that you really want. You want to be getting educated and investing in the real thing yourself and not paying any premium. Okay, so into the NFT news, we saw 3.5 million of artwork sold over the weekend. Continues to blow up. Maddie and I did our full deep dive last week. Musicians getting on board. You can program royalties into these. I love the little nuances that people aren't thinking about when they just keep thinking of these NFTs as little pictures. Microsoft has adopted Ethereum for these royalties as well in the gaming world. So this is all just expanding what's even possible for the developers. Here's a quick little sneak peek at the COGS second editions. So these are going out tomorrow morning or Tuesday morning, depending when you're watching this. But look, it's become a bit of a favorite for our community because I think people are now starting to realize the many different arms they have, from the just the NFTs. They're bringing out their first proper video game soon. Then they've got their payments app. Then they've got the payments bridge, and they're getting into the world of DeFi. So that is why I continue to love that one. And I think a few of you want us to get Benny back on for an interview because, we do need to have a bit more of a deep dive about it all. All right, so Warp Finance, they've recovered 75% of the stolen $8 million. So that's always good news. And the other big one was Hugh Karp himself. So the CEO of Nexus Mutual, the insurance company, quite ironic, isn't it? Got hacked, but it was someone that had KYC'd because it was a Nexus Mutual platform user. So it's gone back and forth here about saying, hey, we know who you are, but now he's demanding, a ransom, and they're putting out a bounty. So I can't wait to see where this one falls, and they're working closely with authorities. Compound Finance founder saying that CeFi will embrace DeFi. We have seen that already with Visa. It's just these companies that are going to, the protocol sync thesis that I speak about, where they're going to realize that for them, it's better to actually just use Bitcoin or Ethereum or stable coins than to use the Swift system. What are they waiting for? Just integrate it yourselves rather than waiting for another company to do it for you or to help you out with your payment rails. It's already there. If you and I can do it, why can't these banks do it and just plug it into their websites and front ends? So Coinbase and Binance both had big outages. Be aware of it, that your favorite exchange might be down. And if that's going to happen at an important time, do you have a plan B as well? Because this happens every bull market. The blockchain will also be full, so you won't be able to send your coins at the time. Missouri, they have valued Coinbase at $28 billion following that IPO filing. And hey, I know that probably FTX is going to give us exposure to that IPO with like a synthetic asset. Maybe some DeFi projects will as well. But that is going to be huge news next year, as crypto hopefully is just, the year is going to be all about crypto. I have that feeling. Unfortunately, this is what I mentioned at the start of the episode about Ledger and all that customer data that's out there, guys. So please check if your name's out there and change your passwords, get a new email address. You just have to do that these days, unfortunately. Immutable Ethereum privacy protocol proposing a governance system. So more and more exciting projects coming together. I've done a tutorial on Tornado Cash, guys. Check that one out if you haven't already. This is the interoperability, the coordination, cooperability that I just love seeing as well. So Secret Network, they're going to be doing something with RFox as well, because we've got these bridges between all the best chains now. I just absolutely love it. And we can start to create secret NFTs or secret ERC20 tokens. So well done to the Tor and the guys at the Secret Network there. Cardano also opening up to Ethereum Solidity devs with a new initiative. One thing that I was critical of was the number of developers that Cardano would have. I didn't think they'd have enough, but when they're opening it up to say, hey, if you're familiar with Solidity, you can help us out or write smart contracts on Cardano, that is a massive positive. So well done to Cardano. Nervos also launching their Ethereum bridge and saying that devs can use it straight out of the box, exactly the same. Again, Polkastarter, they've started launching their DEX. So Polkadot, the top sort of 10 projects on Polkadot, I believe, are probably a good little place to look as well. A little section of your portfolio that you want to have exposure to if DeFi does move to Polkadot in some regards. And Sovereign has launched their complete suite for Bitcoin DeFi. So this is RSK, again, the bridge that Red Fox built between rootstock so they can issue NFTs on top of Bitcoin. These are those protocol layers and syncs. So great to see. The final one that I did want to mention here was the Web3, D-Web. So Sergey's talking about the importance of decentralized oracles to get your information. We saw the graph absolutely explode onto the scene. So this is one that we covered back in July for our members. In our premium research, you would have found that one under our spotlight reports. And I've also done write-ups about this one personally as well, because indexing ability in Web3, super bullish. I actually thought that the ICO was a little bit overvalued, but boy oh boy, it's come out and it's already up 1,000%. So well done those that did invest, or you could have also registered and got some free tokens as well. Ethereum futures are coming. I'm not a fan of these cash-backed products, as you know. Bitcoin futures also launched on this day 3 years ago, and it was not good for the price. So we'll see what happens with Ether. And ETH2 is already the 4th largest staking network. So even though just the tiny little Ethereum chain has got those people starting to deposit, it's already now the 4th largest proof of stake chain. So I think that'll get to number 1 probably by the end of the year. But what that does is open up the possibility for people to get rewards with their ETH staking through these custodians. So Fidelity's been a huge success. We see that in all the data. So you look at things like how many millionaire Bitcoin addresses are there now. It's going parabolic. That is showing us that it's these investment firms. So Rafa have put in 2.5% of their portfolio into Bitcoin in November. One River Digital, another one that we've spoken about here. So this was a bit of a headline analysis that we did for members during the week. It is just unbelievably exciting. And also, look, I don't completely agree with this. So we saw here Jeffries Wood cutting his gold exposure in favor of a new position in Bitcoin. So I don't mind if you're just kind of reweighting a little bit, but I don't agree with these people saying that gold is dead. Sell all your gold and put it all into Bitcoin. You still want to have a little bit of gold, I think, with what is about to happen globally. The other thing that Bitcoin has as an edge over gold is the tech play. So if Bitcoin can get this Lightning Network finally more user-friendly and sorted and more integrations like with exchanges here, that is going to give it another big value prop that people aren't talking about at the moment, as well as the mining industry becoming globally competitive and geopolitically important. So the US mining firm Core Scientific here tripling their capacity with another 60,000 machines. This is the Iran, Iraq, China, Russia. Can the US, can Australia get more hash power? That's a huge part of 2021 as well. Bitcoin options volume cross 1 billion. Another side effect of this market maturing is those investors that want to trade and hedge with options. And we've seen it come through in the on-chain data that there's actually a shortage of Bitcoin. So all these whales are coming in. We can see that the amount of coins on exchanges is starting to drift lower. On Crypto Quant, what's the other ones? Glassnodes, all our favorites there, Sentiment. We can see on chain that still very few people are sending coins to exchanges. Miners aren't really. So all those things mean that there's going to be not very many Bitcoin available and more people buying, and that's why price has been going parabolic. The stock to flow model is now back on track. So everyone thought, hey, is this a little bit of rubbish when we're trading well below that line? But the last few weeks we've jumped up to $24,000 and we're back on track there. And as I just mentioned in the macro section, I think the big boost is another $1 trillion package that's been passed here in the US. And we've got the likes of Raoul Paul also talking about all these hedge funds, 150 European hedge funds. And now that nobody wanted to be first, but there's the rush on not to be last, they're all going to dive into that space. They are all going to want to have that little 1% exposure to crypto. So here we are looking at price. This is a bit of a new indicator I've been playing around with of Troy's. So don't worry too much about the clutter on the chart. Let's just have a look at price. And sure enough, as we are going live here, we're about to break out. I hope we do. Let's go to 25,000 while I'm recording. What are the chances of that? But on the weekly, so how did the weekly close here? That is a very, very healthy looking candle. I might turn off a few of these settings, guys, or I'll open another layout for you. We'll get rid of all that clutter on the chart so it's a little bit clearer for you to see. Okay, that's a lot better. Boy, oh boy, here we go. Didn't that play out as well? So this weekly candle, an absolute monster. Remember how I was joking about the $1,000 days? We had a $1,000 5-minute candle, and now we've got a $5,000 weekly candle. Bitcoin up 27%. I think I said to you the other day, stop thinking about are we overvalued or not and start thinking about things in log scale. Okay, so when you zoom out and when you start to think about where we are going, what's possible, big picture, long term, it's these log charts where you got to say, well, is Bitcoin overvalued there? Does it have to have a pullback? I'm selling and it's definitely going to come back to 20 or it's going to come back to 14. I just do not agree with that at all. We are growing exponentially in terms of the amount of money that's coming in. Retail traders and FOMO in 2017 compared to hedge funds and billionaires. Forget the millionaires. There's not enough Bitcoins for every millionaire in the world to own one. It's billionaires that are getting on board and they're buying Bitcoin. They're also talking about buying Ethereum. So that is becoming the blue chip. And some people hate it when I say that, but Ethereum has cemented itself, I believe, as a blue chip this year as well. And that has got a long way just to catch up. So I think if we're continuing higher and we are green this week, ETH gets to $800 very soon. And it's probably going to overshoot and surprise people if everything is going to plan. We are heading to that $2,000 figure. But before we get too excited, we do need to keep an eye on these ratios because every time it's looked like the ETH Bitcoin pair or a lot of other coins as well, XRP is probably a good example of this. Every time it looks like we're getting somewhere, it just rolls over. So some of these charts aren't too pretty, but at the moment, the attention is on Bitcoin. And once that changes, that's when the money will rotate and change. If Bitcoin can find a range, altcoins are going to boom. Guys, I'll wrap it up there. What a week. Talk to you all soon. Have a great Christmas. Man, oh man, reflect on 2021. Reflect on 2020 and look forward to 2021. I'll probably put up a few more videos and bits of content. But to everyone out there, thanks for another great year and Merry Christmas.